So, this is the third video on this design project that I'm currently working on. So, as you can see in the screen, hopefully everything goes well this time. This is now the layout for actually the four people that will be able to sit in this car, and then also the four wheels for it. So currently, I should know like the overall dimensions for it, but at least it is 2 meters wide at the front, 2 meters and 8 centimeters wide at the back. The first thing that I want to do is kind of show you guys around the layout that I have, so you can kind of see like the top plane and the bottom plane. So, my bad, I should say the right plane and the top plane. So that is the ground level that we have, and also the center of the car will actually be square with the right plane, and that is also what we're going to use to sketch on. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a new part, and we're actually going to let that new part start from the right plane, because the first thing that I always do when I'm actually making like a car with the surface modeling and everything is that I design a roof line, because that will kind of signify how the car will look overall, and it will be like a great determining factor. And also a lot of other joining lines that you need to kind of generate the rest of the body will need to attach to that center line. So it's one of the best places to start in my opinion. So yeah, like I said, we're not going to draw on the right plane, and I kind of want to make sure that we're looking at it square, but from this angle. This is kind of how I start most of the time. So here we can see that the feet of the pedestrian of the passenger are kind of below and also within the wheels. So everything is going to be like within the four wheels, and kind of from that perspective forward, like that is basically how the car is going to look. But this kind of will enable me to kind of maybe start a line drawing it like from right here, and to kind of do a Lamborghini-esque line that it would kind of follow you know all around like this. But also what you can see, if I would draw a line like this, that the head of the actual passenger would sit very close to that window, and you would need to like also give them a little bit of space to actually breathe, and also make the cabin feel a little bit more airy. So this is not to be like recommended that you would have a line that close to where the passenger would actually sit. So usually you would basically start off a little bit more like that to give them a little bit more space, but then also kind of add some curvature to it that you know, would kind of result in having more space in the cabin and stuff like that. But this is just very rudimentary. This is not like the detail of how it's gonna come out, but I just need to have like a feeling of where this is gonna go, and you know, stuff like that. So also with the roof, here I could, you kind of want to pull it down as much as you can, because to make it look sporty, that is kind of what we're going for. But I was kind of thinking maybe it would be dope to have like some sort of a shooting brake type of style to it. Basically what we got right now is the top line of the car, and now I'm gonna make the underline. So I'm gonna do this in different sketches, because sometimes it's kind of useful to kind of keep those things separated, because you're gonna also use multiple sketches to get everything rounded off. So again, I'm gonna select the right plane, click on sketch, and use the spline tool. So again, I also didn't mention that, but I don't use like regular lines, but I use the spline tool most of the time when I'm dragging these lines across. And what the spline tool kind of gives you freedom to do is kind of yeah, you can just drag it and drop it, and also kind of use multiple points in there to kind of get it configured to how you want to. So for now, I'm gonna make the underside and the under tray of the car as well. So I kind of want this car to have a very aerodynamic profile, but also to kind of make it look a little bit shark-like, I guess. So I kind of want that whole shape to be very purposeful, and to do just everything that it needs to. So on the spline tool, you kind of get these handlebars that you can you know, drag and cross along and get the desired curvature. But what you can also do with these is right click them and add a tangency control. So that means that you can like drop a point in there if you want to make it like even more complicated, or if you want more control over how that guide curve is running. So those are just all the possibilities that you have, and you can showcase these pylons that you can drag it, or you can use these points to drag it, or you can use the arrows. So there's like a multitude of ways to kind of get around modifying these lines and getting them the way you want them to, and you know, just to fill your purpose. So that is for the second line. And also with these spline points here, the drag tools, you can kind of see at which angle they're sitting at here in the corner. So If you can see that this is like minus 180, so that would be like the angle at which it's sitting. That is very close to minus 180, so that would mean that it is straight in this case. So now it is basically arrow straight, and if I would then use a regular tool, a line tool, sketch tool, to kind of drag the rest of the floor, or draw the rest of the floor I should say, and I want that to be up to about, I'm gonna just put it somewhere here. And yeah, that is basically for the floor. And then I'm gonna use the rest to kind of make a diffuser. So all of this space between you know, behind the driver, or not the driver, behind one of the passenger seat that's sitting in the back, and this point right here will be usable to kind of make either like aerodynamic. I can make it either way, like that I close it off to kind of have all of those guide points kind of make follow one point, or I could make like one big diffuser out of it, but all of this space is basically open and free for me to do what I want with it. So I don't have to put a gearbox in here. I don't have to worry even about suspension mounting points, because I can come up with, you know, clever ways to kind of make them disappear within the body. So there's a lot of open freedom there is with designing a car with these hubless electric motors with integrated in the wheels. But for this car, I am going to like make it a little bit more of like a station wagon type deal, that I give it a little bit more of like a back surface something, and then still make a very extreme diffuser at the rear, because that would just look amazing if you ask me. So that is kind of what I want to do here still. And also, if you can add a curvature, like a round surface to the bottom of a car that is very similar to the round surface that you have on top of the car, that will also help eliminate a lot of the natural lift that a car will produce. Because if you look at a shape like this on the bottom would be just straight across, then the air traveling on top of the car will need to follow a way longer curve, or a way longer travel pattern than the air at the bottom, but they will still arrive at the rear section of the car at the same speed. So if it needs to travel a longer distance in the same amount of speed, then the air will speed up, and faster moving air will create a negative pressure zone on top of the car that you want to eliminate as much as you can. So by giving the bottom of the car also a similar curvature to the top of the car, you can kind of eliminate that speed differential and air currents from the top to bottom, creating less lift on the car. So that would inherently already help with creating also downforce, because it is close to the ground, and then you will have ground effects, and then you will create downforce. So that is kind of the thinking pattern behind designing a car, and the kind of the shapes that you would want to put in it, and the things to take into consideration. So I think this would be roughly like kind of the shape we're looking for. The only thing that I still want to do is kind of make the nose way lower, because I have kind of a cool idea on how to kind of integrate like also a crossbar section and everything. That I kind of just want this point to be where the splitter would regularly start, and then have like a different separating piece on the top. Now we have our first kind of plane that we can do some stuff with, but the next thing that I always do is kind of have this point right here from the wheels, is to make the outer fender line, and also the line that goes across in the top section of it. So for now I'm gonna use the sketch tool, and I'm gonna select like one of the flat planes on the outer side. Let's just use this disc right here, because I think that's also a little bit extruding from the rest of the wheel surface itself. So we can just select this tire wheel basically, and select convert entities, and then also do offset entities to kind of get a bigger radius around it. And I just want the tire clearance to be as small as possible, but still, you know, sufficient and everything. So yeah, I'm gonna just use like 30 millimeters. That will give me like a good 3 centimeters. That is separation from the car. And then a little bit above the center line, I'm gonna cut everything off, because I want if you look at it from the front, it kind of needs to have a tapered in effect from this point moving forward. So it's not gonna be like a straight circle from, you know, that point forward, as I said. So again, I'm gonna just exit this sketch. So I'm gonna add a sketch to the same surface that the other one was at. So again, select this face right here, and again select sketch, convert entities, put this surface again, and then offset entities. Oh my bad, I didn't even have to convert the entities. I can just use convert entities. And I'm gonna put 40 millimeters in this case, so that is gonna give me a little bit of distance between the two. And I'm gonna select exit sketch, and right here I have a tab open called surfaces, and you can get that by just right clicking anywhere within the tabs, and here you can kind of select which one of them you want to use, and it will give you different tools and everything. And then you would have to, you know, make sure that the surfaces box is checked. So in surfaces you have a bunch of stuff that you also have for features, but in this case only for surfaces. So I can then use like surface loft, select this sketch, and also select this one, and I will now get like my first surface in there, which will kind of be the side profile of the wheel fender. So what I also always do is within this surface, and you can now also use it to sketch on it, is find the center point for the top of the wheel, because from the center point right here we're gonna select a plane, and that plane can then be used to draw the rest of the wheel fender on. So plane, and then you can kind of select this point and then select that, I believe it was the front plane, and then that front plane will then be mirrored on top of that point right there, so that will kind of give you a cross section from the wheel. And if you got that, then you can select sketch and then select plane 1 to sketch on that plane. So I also use a spline tool for this right here, and then also use the front angle, and then from this point right here, from the bottom of the sketch, I'm gonna draw like the lines over that will kind of be around the fender and everything. And because we already have like a 30 millimeter spacer between the wheel itself and that fender section, and then the start of the fender section itself is 40 millimeters, so we already have like something like 7 centimeters for wheel travel suspension. So we don't need to do this like very much so to kind of get the biggest fender that we can get, because we also want to keep everything as small as possible, because all of this will be frontal surface area that we need to push through the air, kind of move it out the way and stuff like that. So we want to keep everything as low as possible with all of these fenders, but we still also need to make sure that we have enough room in there for not only suspension travel, but also the turning motion of the wheel once it is at an angle and everything. So we need to have a little bit of extra space in there for those cases. So here we have the first point. So I always kind of cut these up into different pieces, because that kind of gives you the opportunity to put sharper edges in these creases and stuff, and I always like the way that looks more than it when it's just straight. So just continue to use the spline tool to kind of drag these out, and I also and here I kind of use this point to give the space for if the wheel would be turning in certain cases. So in the rear you wouldn't really need it, but in the rear you want to kind of keep that the wide look of the tire. So even though you could keep it smaller than the front, in the rear you'll always kind of make it bigger, because you kind of want it to look bigger in the rear too. So for now I'm gonna just put a little bit of a curvature on these to kind of make them softer, because to keep them square like that wouldn't be my style of design. But that is all up to you. Like whatever you want to do, it is your free choice. Usually people kind of design cars in SolidWorks based off of these blueprints from other cars and stuff, but this method will kind of give you the freedom to make everything you want to make yourself. So yeah, I think that is why this is also like a very better method to do that. And I kind of want to keep this angle here to have like a little bit of a sharper crease to it than the rest of them. This can be a little bit more blended in, but I kind of want the outer perimeter to look a little bit higher than the one in the inside right there. So that is the kind of the shape of the fender that I'm going for. And later on we can mirror this to the other side with no issue, so we don't even have to worry about replicating what we're doing. And like I said, we're now at the back portion, so we kind of make the rear look a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. So we can see like this line obviously, and we're just gonna use it as kind of a guideline to kind of keep our dimensions and everything straight. So we're gonna make it a little bit higher. So from this point you can see that I'm taking it a little bit up from there, and also again then from this point I'm gonna take it just a little bit wider, so it's not the same height, but it will with the guide curve you can see that it's kind of always staying there. And you don't even need to make it way out there, but also just in perspective view, and when people see it in real life you're gonna see that this kind of will give it an effect of being a little bit of a stronger car and makes it look a little bit more rear driven. So it is a little bit rear bias, I guess, but that is overall in car design, that is one of the main principles that people across the board kind of seem to dig about cars. If they're like yeah, that is just what hypercars and supercars also have in there. So basically rear engine, rear mid-engine cars kind of have these same character traits. So yeah, there we have our first couple of lines and everything in there. So with the roof itself, you can also see that here there is a lot of open space. So if you want to keep the amount of, you know, square centimeters of frontal area by in a minimum, you can kind of also create a double bubble roof in there that will keep the frontal area to a minimum, and also kind of give that extra effect of, you know, strong attributes and also lines and everything to the car. So that is also something that I always want to add in there. But yeah, so for the front I'm gonna use the 3D sketch again, and I'm gonna select this point and I'm gonna select the top surface, because for this right here I kind of want to make a little bit of like a under tray, like a front diffuser and everything, but also make it rounded off and do a couple of other nice things to it. So this would kind of be the front air intake, but it's not really air intake because the car doesn't have any type of radiators or anything in it, but it's just like a little bit of the under tray, like I said. So with this line I am gonna add a tangency control to it at this point, and I'm gonna kind of drag this line a little bit downward, and you can kind of see it going all over the place, but that's not too big of a worry. So we're just gonna take this line and again pull it forward, but we can now select that if we take this point here and use this line again that you see -90, so that would mean that it is now perfectly flat, and if you would mirror it along to the other side there wouldn't be a crease or anything in there. So that is kind of what we want, and all of the points that kind of go towards the center would kind of require that, because otherwise you would see like folding lines or indentations when you mirror it along to the other side. So that is a way to kind of keep your body surface clean too. And then we have to take all of these out, but you have to do this from a lot of different angles, because if you now go back towards the top view then this might be all the way messed up again. So let's see if that really happened. In this case it stayed pretty decent. I think here you can kind of see that we don't want it to kind of go up and down, so here we can again drag this out and to kind of keep it across that line very similar. And then you can also pan around it to make sure that when you look around it in 3D that it is also performing to like the same level as the rest of the car would be. Another good thing to set up even before you would do this actually in the car is to also make a plane of where the bottom of the car is definitely gonna be. So if we would go to the features plane again, and then we kind of can select a point on this line, because we kind of know that that is gonna be flat. And then once we have selected a point, we can then select top plane, and then you can see that a kind of another line will show up, and that will show you what the base plateau of the car would kind of be, also from the wheels, from the wheel standpoint and everything. And that is very handy to have, because if I can then drop it across that 3D sketch that we just made and go back to that sketch, I can select this point right here that I want to touch the floor, and hold down my control button and then select this plane, and then we can select add on plane. So then you can see that that point will kind of be attached towards that point on the floor, and that will make your life for whole build easier with attaching other lines to it and everything. So now that it is on the floor, let's make like a final check to see if everything is still where we want it to be, and that the curvatures kind of follow on nicely. And it's good, but I don't want this point to kind of be pointing, because that will determine the angle of the rest. So I kind of want this point to be a little bit more towards the inside and just have that line pointing down, be a little bit more relaxed than having like a little bit more of an aggressive curvature inward. So that is kind of the first point, that you set up all of the lines that will be like the outer perimeters of the whole car, that you have something to kind of then fill in the blanks with. So just draw your outer lines first and foremost, and then everything will kind of fall in place way easier than if you would start in the middle somewhere if you don't know kind of what your baseline is. So that is basically what we're doing right now, setting up the baselines. So then you can again select the plane 3 right here, and then we can click on sketch, use the spline, and then we can kind of draw the floor of the car in everywhere where we want it to be. So you can kind of see that this is where the point is for the wheel fender to kind of close off. So I'm gonna drag it a little bit inward because we want that car to have a little bit of like a tuck in the design of it. So we can also add like a splitter underneath that is then again a little bit wider and stepping out. So that is all of those design tricks that you can kind of use to make the underside of the car appear smaller and closer to the ground, I guess, than the rest of the top of the surface. So make it a little bit wider, but we want to see a little bit of the tire on the front when we look at it. So I think that would be good, but I'm gonna just make this line curvature a little bit more rounded off. So kind of drag this point a little bit closer to here, gonna drag this point a little bit closer, and then kind of round all of these edges off. So, but that is the process. Is just being very meticulous and paying attention to your details, and just continue on working on those until you're satisfied. And for me, it's also a little bit preemptive, because I just know that certain decisions will affect me down the long way, because if I don't make some of these changes right now and attach surfaces to them, and those surfaces will kind of be frangled up and don't look nice, then I have to do a lot of changes. So I try to keep these lines as clean as possible, because those will kind of determine how your surfaces will end up looking. So that is kind of also like a pro tip, I guess. Yeah,